budget to spend.
So, I mean, honestly, I know you guys are gonna go.
Yeah.
They should also do that.
I'm going too fast now. So this is our work session. Chief Justice, could you lead us
Yes,
in?
join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so have you all had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda for the work session?
Yes.
Oh. Rebecca, I would like to welcome you to your first board meeting.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here and certainly a pleasure to have you on board. Are you prepared to call roll call for
I
us?
am, yeah.
Thank you. Could you do so?
Yep. Sandy Smith,
Present.
Scott Dorman,
Here.
Ryan Leahy,
Present.
Jeff Robbins,
Here.
and John Smith.
Here.
Okay, now, has everybody had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda for the work session?
Yes.
Does anybody have any comments, questions, changes, concerns? May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda for the work session?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the work session for
I'll
Monday, the 27th.
I'll second that.
Was it, okay, was that Jeff or
Yeah,
Ryan?
Jeff.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carried. All right, well, I am going to turn it over first to you, Chief Jones, because I think you have a presentation for us, correct?
Yes, and this won't be as much of a presentation as just a way to walk us through the discussion. So, please interrupt me at whatever point you want to, and we can discuss. And we can go from there. I mean, so it's really not a presentation, it's more of a discussion. There's a lot of material here that needs to be considered. And we may not get through all. So we'll start through it. We do have, Travis and Ian here from the town. If it's okay with you, maybe I'll just have them come up and sit at the table. Is that all right? Because they'll be
Sure.
part of this discussion.
Please,
And I'm gonna go ahead and stand.
could you introduce yourselves so I know who's who?
Travis McCullough, I'm the town administrator for the town of Estes Park. Ian Sterling, police chief.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna go ahead and kind of run the clicker from here so I can kind of see everybody. And then direct questions wherever we need to go. This is a topic that's been kicking around for some time. I've heard it many times since I've been here. So it's not new, but it has gained some traction here in the last several months. And as we've discussed a couple times since I've been here, it's probably time to start really thinking about what we're gonna do about this issue. Before we go any further, do we have anybody else that needs to be on or anything?
I have one person that's joined, Patty Brown.
Okay, good. So I just want to make sure that we got everybody on before we actually start the presentation. Hello, Patty.
She can't talk.
She
Can't
can't talk.
talk. Okay.
She can't.
All right.
This is her hand.
You can raise your hand. Okay, this is a presentation or, kind of a lead discussion on financial independence for the district. I think all of you are aware, probably even more than I am, that we have kind of an unusual funding mechanism for our district. Most districts are funded completely by property tax, or now a combination of property tax and sales tax. The legislature allowed districts to assess sales tax here, I think in 2024. So in the last couple of years, as well as various fees and things like that, but mostly property tax. In our situation, we are funded a little more than half, exclusive of the 1A wildfire risk reduction money. Almost, probably about 55, almost 60% from the city's sales tax through an intergovernmental agreement. So we are not, while we are financially independent, from the town and from the county, our funding to a large extent is based on the IPA with the town. So we're gonna kind of walk through this, and again, stop me any place you wanna discuss or wanna discuss amongst yourselves, ask questions of me. I may not have answers, Rebecca's gonna take good notes and we'll take a look at, see then after today's session, where you wanna go from there. Oops, I guess I gotta turn this on here. There we go. Okay, the objectives for today, as we've outlined them from staff, you may have others, so before we leave the slide, let me know if there's other things you wanna do. We want to discuss today a four-step process for making the district financially independent. We also want to discuss today, and in as much detail as we have time for, the why and the needs of why we're talking about going down this road. We will preview the how today, and we will may get a little bit into the planning and the action, but mostly today, the why and the needs, and finishing up with the how. We'll talk about a potential project timeline. Right now, I think the discussion that you've had in the past few months has been, if we want to do anything, probably in 2027. I don't think you talked about specifically whether May or November. We can talk a little bit about that today, but we've got a kind of a project outline to show you. We also want to hear from you, staff, mostly Rebecca, me, and our two division chiefs sitting back here. From you, what you want us to be doing in the future on this project. You will note that in your next meeting today, the regular meeting, there's an agenda item for that. So if you want to take action on any of this kind of stuff or give us direction, there's an agenda item for that. Is there anything else you'd like to do today other than these four things? Okay, moving along. What have we done so far? This is the work that we've done. I've done a little bit of work with Justin and John, and Miranda and Rebecca and I over the last, I've been working on this the last 2 or 3 months. Obviously, we've been talking to Ian and Travis. But we have, reviewed all the documents between the district and the town. There's been 2 work sessions over the last 2 years, one last summer and the one the summer before that. And I think you've, you know what, I don't know whether you've seen the notes from those. Rebecca, make a note and we'll make sure we send them the notes from those 2 meetings. You will, obviously, the board that had the last meeting, but not the meeting before that.
Correct.
So we'll make sure we get those to you. We've met several times, or I have met with Ian and Travis on this project, and I thank them for being here today because part of why we are where we are, some of those discussions we're having. Obviously, there have been some previous board discussions reflected in your minutes. I have met with the county and have required from them some sales tax information that we probably won't get into today. Matter of fact, I don't have in the presentation today. But I think some of you are aware that, as I mentioned in 2024, when the legislature allowed us to do that, to assess the sales tax, it also put a lot of exclusions on it. So the exclusions that are on sales tax for fire districts are more expansive than they are for other local governments. And there's quite a long list of them. So when we talk about the sales tax that the town assesses or the county assesses the state, it's not exactly the same as a fire district. As a matter of fact, it's a little bit less.
So just a quick question. So does that, I mean, are you referring to the fact that, while we'll be collecting taxes from people that live in unincorporated Larimer County and the town, so there's certain things that we can't do, where the rules are more stringent for the people in the county.
Or and in the city, and in the town, under our sales tax. Cause it wouldn't be the same as the town's sales tax, it would be our sales tax.
But the people in the town are also, I mean, they're gonna be taxed the same thing, right?
Yes, as the people in the district. There'll be separate sales tax, it'll be our sales tax would be, if we decide to go down that route, would be completely separate from the town. As compared to now, where the sales tax will get through the town is assessed only by the town, and then we receive some of it through another government.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so we've got some of that information, although we really won't get into that. We have met with some consultants. As a matter of fact, 3 of them. And there are others. And we have met with, it says there 4 other fire districts. Actually, we've met with 7. I've met with several more in the last week. And some of that information is in the board over here. When we get to that point, I'll talk about that in more detail. Actually, Sandy and I went down and talked to one of them, and she might want to share on that when we get to that
I'd
point.
be happy to.
So this is the work that we've done so far. In addition to work that I think I'm not sure what previous chiefs have done with this issue. Of course, Justin's new in his position, and John, I don't think we've really worked on this a whole lot. No, not, but other than maybe just talk. Okay, some observations of things that we learned from our research so far, and like I mentioned, we're just scratching the surface so far on this. Let's see here. We got the thing. Okay, the first line says.
Community and public engagement are critical.
Public, there we go. Thank you very much. We found that this is absolutely critical to any kind of initiative that asks citizens to increase the money that they're given, government in general. But that whole piece is absolutely critical. We've also found, especially talking to some of our colleagues out there in other districts, as well as the consultants, is that there's a lot of variability in communities as far as their support for revenue initiatives, the support for the services, those kinds of things. And in our case, there may be some past issues that we've had within our organization and with the community that might require some extra efforts in public engagement information. We also found that this one here is really important, that we really need to have the needs and the why do we want to do this and what our needs are as a service to the community really tied down before we jump into the how we do it. And I think we've kind of got a little bit the horse in front of the cart, or the cart in front of the horse here a little bit. And we were talking about how we're gonna do it, what kind of facts before we've really talked about the why and the needs. And that's why today we're gonna step back and spend most of the time on the why and the needs. We also found that fire is typically one of the highest supported services, and especially receives a lot of good reaction from revenue initiatives in the future. I think what did the
She said, kids equal education, pets equal outdoors, and then a firefighter.
so we tend to be firefighters, fire protection, emergency services tend to be relatively well regarded.
Right after the dogs.
Right after the dogs. I have to go with that one.
That makes sense.
In our campaigns, we can put a firefighter or a dog.
And a
it's
dog,
kid.
and a dog, yeah.
No, three.
Dalmatian.
The folks we've talked about now have been telling us that if we want to do some kind of an initiative in the fall of 2027, even possibly in May of 2027, that our timing is about right. That we're getting started actually a little bit early. This is a big project. We may get there have been some of our colleagues that started late and still were successful. But most suggest that you need to be out ahead of year in this project, in any kind of project. Also, turnout is higher. Higher turnout is better for revenue initiatives. That's why most consultants, and I think my own experience has been that fall elections are usually better, because fall elections usually have much higher turnout. And higher turnout is always better for revenue initiatives. The higher number you have of people turn out.
Is it the case though that during, and I think I saw that somewhere in one of your reports, maybe not for this particular meeting, but that in November elections, that's when you tend to have more revenue requests on the ballot.
That could be as well.
Therefore, you're competing with others.
That could be. The also downside to a November election is special districts are always the back of the ballot. Or, you got the federal stuff and the state stuff, and then you get the town, and then you get the county. And then if you're not tired of turning pages, you get to the special district, so that is, an issue. But in general, higher turnout is better. And that is usually in a fall. In our case, 2027 will be an off-year fall election. So even for a fall election, the turnout will be low. As a matter of fact, we had one consultant suggest to us, say, you really gotta wait until 28 for a real big election, a national election. or push it real hard and do it this year. You know, to get the turnout there. Odd year elections, like I said, have a lower turnout. This is a big one here. Consultants we found are really important for success. There's a lot of stuff that goes into not only running an election itself, but all the lead up to the election, putting together the public information, the public engagement strategies that go with all of that, putting together different funding scenarios, all that stuff takes some help to do that. So consultants are important. This is interesting, some districts have been successful with fast tracking elections. That they decided they were gonna go for one on February and put it on the May ballot and still pass. You know, so that has happened. However, most really caution against that, you know, being very prepared and well-designed, you know, programs to put together. But it could, as a matter of fact, some consultants have told us, you know, maybe just put it on the 2026 ballot, see where it goes. You know, I mean, we have been told that. I'm not sure that's what we want to do, but that some places have done that. And some have been successful and some not. There have been some significant failures. One of the biggest failures is timing, not having the time to prepare. As a matter of fact, we talked to the Elizabeth Fire District, I think, a couple days ago, and they exactly did that. They didn't start their project until like May, and then went for a November election. But they just didn't have time, and they just, you know, and they lost that thing. Another one was Wellington, and even though their polling was good, they had active opposition. Anytime you have active opposition, and when I say active opposition, I don't mean Facebook or, you know, snipping, you know, it's when people actually go out and buy yard signs, spend money to oppose it, buy newspaper ads, those kind of things. That's active opposition. We also were told by several that task force advisory groups have been found to be helpful. You know, putting together some kind of a separate group to help out with designing
Comprised
your
of,
organization.
comprised of people from the community.
Yeah.
Stakeholders,
Yeah.
partners.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, all the above. And as I mentioned already, active opposition can contribute to failure of an initiative. Does anybody want to add anything to that or want to discuss any more of those? These are the things that, you know, we kind of found as we were talking to people. How often can you put it on the ballot? Well, you can put it on the ballot every time if you want. Yeah, and there's some, I mean, there are strategies. Yeah, there are. There are places that have done that. They put it on and they don't make it, they put it on the next time and they make it, or they may get a couple times. And you'll see our history here too. And a little bit, we've had a little bit of that history.
Just with the people in our fire district, I think if we put it on in November here this year and if it doesn't make it, then you go out, and shake hands and kiss babies and make it happen, but I think before you spend a bunch of money on stuff, just put it out there. And I don't know, this community's pretty supportive of the fire department, even with some of the stuff that's happened in the fire department, they still, community seems to show up for them, so.
And that is not, we heard that with some of the people we talked to. It is only April.
Well,
So,
that's what I was gonna say. It's not like we'd be just winging it. It's not, I mean, we're not talking about this in August or September. We're talking about it in April, so,
so hold that thought.
okay.
As we go through as we go through the discussion today, we'll come back to that. And if you feel like you want to go that way,
When are you guys putting yours on?
We wouldn't have a ballot initiative, so the town, like the fire district, can only go for taxing initiatives to a regular election, which would be 28 would be the next regular election, or the coordinated election 27. The way that the thing that we've talked about prior would work is the town would not have an election. We would be supporting the fire district's effort, whatever that looks like, and
Okay.
we're happy to have conversations about that.
All right, thank you.
Justin, would you write up on the board there? Just stand up. Yeah, just put 2026 election with a question mark next to it. That's a key point. And let's not lose that as we go through.
I don't know, I feel like if we throw it out there and it feels.
All right, let's hold that thought as we go through. Okay, here are the 4 steps over a potential 18-month timeline, and we're losing the top here.
No, I don't know how to make it go.
That's okay, I'll remember.
Um,
First,
I think I could help.
there you go.
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
there we go, thank you.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Uh-huh. Well, you have it up there, Nigel.
So here is kind of an 18-month timeline to the fall 2027 election. Now, this could be a spring 2027 election, or as we just discussed, it could be a fall of 2026 election. But there are 4 distinct steps that we've learned. One is why? Why do we want to do it? Why does an agency want to go to their citizens and ask for more money? Then there's the whole question of how you do it. What kind of initiative are you looking for? What is the timing? And then, once you get that, then you gotta put together a plan to do it. And a lot of that plan is legal work. Following all the legal requirements, all the steps that have to happen. And then lastly, there's action, actually, getting it on ballot. And then there is a point at which we cannot be involved with the campaign anymore. Those of us that are staff, no public money can be spent after a period of time. And I'm not sure what the date on that, but it's usually around late August, early September, when you actually make the agreement with the county to be under
Yeah, I
that.
think it's when it's submitted to the county, the ballot is
Ballot.
submitted and accepted. And when it's placed on the ballot is when you go into your, what is it
And
called,
why-
code of silence, or I think is what it's called.
At which time then the actual campaign is then run by another group, an issue committee or something like that, which is a group of citizens or other groups, and they have to raise their own money to buy signs and all that kind of stuff. Now, there are things that you can do as a board. One
I
is.
was just about to ask that question, because we're not
Yep.
paid.
That's right. One thing you do is you can adopt a resolution of that. Which is all the reasons the board is supporting doing it. And then actually that becomes the talking points that we all use from staff, is what that is. And because you are elected officials, this other stuff doesn't apply. Now, our attorneys can give you more specific information on how that does. But as far as staff goes, we can't spend any public money on it. And it's not really, and it also volunteer firefighters also, because they're volunteers, that's handled a little bit differently too, because they're not getting paid. But in our case, our volunteers do get, different kinds of things that you provide for them. So we have to work out all that with our attorneys. So those are the 4 steps. Now, everyone we've talked to suggests surveying or polling. And what they call this one here is the informed survey, where it's after you decide what you need to do, what you need, how you want to do it, then you do a survey. And the survey folks go out and they have methodology for doing it. And get a feeling for what the temperature is of the community for, if it's sales tax, a $0.25 for X. Full percent for X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is to put that together. And they all do that. They all recommend that. Some consultants also recommend a smaller survey at the very beginning of the process. They call that an uninformed survey, whereas they actually do one shorter, more general. What do people know about the agency? What do they know about the issues? And then that information then can be used into the designing of the how in the action plan. So that can be done as well. So these are the 4 steps over this period of time. Obviously, if it were November 2026, it would be, pretty much here, and all these things would slide over this way. Any questions on that? Okay, everyone up.
It might be my fault. Now, right?
There we are. Okay. So why are we pursuing this whole issue of financial independence? There are 3 reasons, big picture reasons, even though we've been focused on police building right now, but that's one piece of the total puzzle. The 3 big pieces are, the ability to plan for the future. If we don't have, full control of the revenue streams that support this organization and the service, then it's pretty hard to plan for the future. It also gives us direct control over the revenue. And again, our relationship with the town is fantastic, probably always will be fantastic, but I mean, something could happen years or down the road. And I don't think any organization wants to have more than half of their revenue tied to a contract with somebody else.
Isn't this also, though, I mean, in terms of how we propose this to the community, it also enables the town to focus on enhancing protection services and other kinds of things. So we could actually characterize this a lot more positively as opposed to we just want control.
Yep.
Because something might happen one day, right? It's more about collaboration and
Yep.
enhancing all of the services that are provided to the community.
And the last point is kind of, direct connection between the residents and property owners and the services that. Now, of course, here's the one that I think Travis and Ian are here to talk about in a little more detail. And that there have been ongoing discussions with the town about reallocating sales tax funding currently that is shared with us through our IGA to address some other town needs. And most of that is revolving right now around the new public safety facility. So with that, would you guys like to expound upon, kind of where we are with that and how that project has gotten where we are today?
So, I think everyone's pretty aware that, and if you haven't met me, I'm Ian Stewart, everyone's pretty aware we're working out of a building that's going to begin to suit our needs. And you can look at it through the lens of law enforcement, but there's a very specific reason, and I would appreciate you addressing that way in the slide, is we're not trying to build a new police department here. We're truly trying to build a new public safety building. If you've seen some of the last town board meetings, it's over there, going to be on the corner of the event center, so it is adjacent to this building. But a really important piece in it is that, going back to my first week here as the chief, not in an interim capacity, we had Alexander Fire, and I remember you being there with me for days, and many of the people in the room there for days, and there's an absolute need in this region, but specifically for the town servicing all of the Estes Valley, for a true dedicated emergency operations center. We have to have that capability. Right now, we're working out of the upstairs of the event center. I'm extremely appreciative of event center staff for letting us have that, but the fact of the matter is, depending on when that gets spooled up, that may not be available to us, depending on how long it takes to have whoever's leased that facility move out so we can move in. And then in addition to that, it's not really plumbed, wired, or set up to be an emergency operations center. We really duct tape and bubble them to serve that need for us. And really, we need an emergency operations center for the region that does address fire, water, EMS, all of our volunteer organizations, actions, disasters, along with school district, if it happens to be school centric, if it happens to be outside Rocky Mountain National Parks, or federal partners can move in. We really need to address all those things. The other part of it being is that we do have a regional PSAP, our dispatch, our public safety answering points. It services this department. And right now, I know a lot of you've been up there, but you know how they're kind of stacked on top of each other up there. It's really not a good situation. I applaud our dispatchers every day that they come in and make it work. But the Fire Protection District, Pinewood, Glen Haven, our partners in EMS, and then everyone else who's serviced by that PSAP really deserves PSAP that their personnel, policy, procedures, and then the facilities themselves suit all of our needs. And then with that is, we have been through the conceptuals we put together for that building, been very, very responsible. There's not a pretty much big space in there that's not designed to be multi-purpose. That EOC I've been talking about a lot would also serve as a training center. And again, there's not a plan yet for that building, but there's some concepts. And all the concepts have our training room off of the front lobby that would almost be a halfway point between the secure facility and the lobby, such that it would really be my vision that Tuesday nights, if it's academic training, and that's when the fire department wants to go through, the S215 class for fire operations in the Woodland, the WUI. Awesome. That's really from the very beginning for us being, how can we make this facility serve everyone's needs, in the public safety realm to be greater Estes Valley?
So you've heard a little bit about me from Chief Stewart here. The financial side of things is the more complicated piece. I think, this is a 1930s facility that we've shoehorned a growing department into since the 70s. There is a strong need to make that change. The scope of the change is significant. The cost associated with that change is significant. We're currently estimating between $30 and $34 million for the construction of the new facility. Some of that is in relocation of stall barns that are on that property right now. Not all of them, but about 6 would need to be relocated as part of that reconstruction. That has a cost associated as well, just like buying land would be. We've looked at a number of parcels, identified this particular one, and are now at the financing stage. In looking at how to construct a feasible and responsible financial package, we've identified 3 existing sources and then trying to patch together the 4th. The first is the roll off of the event center debt. So in 2012, 2013, the town took on debt to build the events complex, the pavilion and the event center itself. That debt will be paid off next year, 2027. That will free up ongoing revenue in the general fund that can be used to service new police station debt. Likewise, with the parking garage debt, that is up in 2032. That will roll off and can become part of the pro forma of the ongoing general fund money available to service existing debt instead of just being rolled over into other general fund priorities. The third piece of that is every time we have money that comes in over estimates. So we had about at the end of last year, say about $500,000 that we were not anticipating. That money is being set aside into a reserve account within our capital fund for investment in the police facility. We have about $1.5 million set aside there. We're hoping to continue to set aside extra unanticipated revenue into that account to buy down the cost of borrowing, which leaves the 4th source unidentified. Of course, you all know we've had conversations with the fire district board, joint session with the town board about the potential to access the money that we're currently sending to the fire district. Now that there is the ability for the fire district to levy its own sales tax. Of course, that wasn't an option when this division happened, and it would make 0 sense to have a fire district in the town of Estes Park that did not have some sort of tie to the visitor economy. So it made sense then, it still makes sense now. I think that this new opportunity with the changing state statute presents an opportunity for the town to support the fire district and gain that financial independence. I'm comfortable in stating, based on conversations that the board has had, the town board, as well as staff, that if the fire district chooses to move in this direction, we are more than happy to use our experience, resources to assist you in the pursuit of that. Again, because it serves the public safety interests of the entire valley. We respond to assist other agencies, most frequently the Larimer County Sheriff's Office outside of town boundaries with the police station. Of course, you all cover the unincorporated Estes Valley as well as town limits. So there's a natural nexus here between our organizations, and we're excited to be a part of these conversations and appreciate your willingness to consider pursuing a sales tax that would not only secure your financial independence, but would also allow us to build this new public safety facility.
Just trying to put this. Who is, when?
As soon as possible. We would love to have it, yeah, we would like to break ground in late 27, early 28 if possible. That's all contingent on securing financing. Right now, we would be looking at, if we were able to break ground in late 27, early 28, we would be looking at, if everything goes smoothly, late 29, early 2030 occupation of that building.
You have design on.
We have a RFP out for design. We've received two responses, I believe, maybe more, within budget, and are evaluating those, and we bring that contract to the board shortly. We have been fortunate to access grant funding for the design of the facility. So that's another step that we're taking to try to reduce the overall borrowing costs.
Any questions for Chief Stewart, or that's,
Yeah, I've got one. Chief, when you design this building, is there a possibility to be able to design some office space in it for our mitigation people instead of renting property that we have to do now, is actually having some room for us to be over there instead of building another facility for us?
It's certainly a possibility. We probably need to jump into that pretty quickly in that. Those would have to be new additions designed on, so we, like I said, we just have conceptuals. But at this point, our conceptuals were kind of cut off, everything kind of out of even our conceptual. To get just what we basically need, because this is expensive and we're very respectful of that. So if that was something we wanted to pursue, we would just need to make sure we build that in or sure.
John, you got any comments on that as far as whether that would be a good thing to do, or, because right now, you know, you're over in your own little place over there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discussion that could be had. And one of the options, I think, if we had a joint training facility and didn't need this training room as much, that we might be able to expand and be able to live within the building we're in now. And you know, share the training facility. I think there's a lot of discussion that could be had.
I think this does open up the discussion about getting a sense of what it is we need money for, because, you know, we're looking at this, we have to look at it from a much broader perspective, long-term perspective, and one of the things we may want to consider as a district is whether we want to consolidate our own space, have everybody in one space, perhaps expand this space or reconfigure it in some way, in which case you wouldn't need to be at the new fire station, I'm sorry, police station. At the new police station, we would all be together in one sort of more expanded space, and that's part of what I think we have to think about in terms of what capital needs we have long-term, right? And so what is it? What are we going to ask for? How much money are we going to ask for? What are our capital needs going forward? What reserves do we need to have? Those kinds of things.
I will say, even if it's not in the new facility and if there's a transition period, one thing that moving the police department out of town hall does do is free up space within town hall. That's kind of pieced throughout town hall. And so we haven't had conversations yet. We're hoping to start conversations next year about what to do with all of that space. But certainly if there's an opportunity, even if it's a short-term interim thing to save the fire district money, that's something that we could talk about.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think if they're already going to make like a training room, I like that idea better of getting everybody into our building. If we gotta go somewhere else for a room like this.
And maybe expanding those bays out there, because you know, they're just jammed, talk about people being jammed on top of each other.
I was just gonna add to that, if we're gonna co-locate with somebody, it would probably make more sense to be closer to the building department, since we work with them frequently, that would be with the police. I mean, would make it more of a one-stop shop.
Yeah, no, that would be a good idea.
I would love to be part of these conversations going forward as this thing develops.
Thank you. I was kind of getting, like, I kept looking out and trying to see people.
Okay, any other questions, and please stay and be part of the rest of the discussion, because there may be other issues that come up.
I do, just because I know, I just passed my 11th year in Estes, and I know things can sometimes take on a life of their own. I have heard no current board members say that they have any interest in unilaterally reducing, as Chief Jones mentioned, that's always a future risk. I've never heard that from any board that I've worked with, that we should take back that money and spend it on something else. This is something the board wants to work collaboratively with the fire district about. I do want to make sure that that's very clear, that this is potentially a great source, and we don't want it to feel like, hey, we're gonna take this, so you better figure it out.
I agree with you 100%. I've had a lot of conversations with different board members, trustees, as well as with the mayor, and I've never had the impression that this is something they want to, you know, take away and put someplace else. That's just not the impact at all.
We could find some more places.
They could.
Trying to do that just yet.
Oh, you're looking away at stealing your food.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Oh, you get me back here?
Yeah, just a second, I'll share the screen again.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Okay, there's some other points here that I think are important to make, is not only do we have the general issues that we talked about, and then the specific issues dealing with the town and the police facility. But we also have current and emerging long-term funding needs. I have looked at our past strategic plans, and I can't attest to exactly which strategic plans have been adopted or not, but they are there. We had one.
Any of them?
I think we have one in 2014 that was done when you were here, Scott. There was quite a bit of,
I don't think any of them.
I don't
have been
think,
adopted.
but, and then we have some work that was done in 2022 and 2023. So we do have some stuff that's been done. I think it's also, and this is where you might want to talk a little bit, Sandy, as we have talked to the Evans Fire District, because they're in a very similar situation to us. They were formed the year after us here. As a matter of fact, I was the fire chief there at the time, but we established the Evans Fire District from the city of Evans, very similar situation. And when we were first formed, they also had an IGA with the city to keep the mill levy lower. And where they provided a portion of the sales tax. Now, they were a little bit different. The relationship between the district and the city was not as harmonious as ours.
That's putting it mildly.
And 3 or 4 years ago, the city did notify the district that they were gonna terminate that agreement, they were gonna, take their money back. No, and, not coincidentally, they were gonna build a police facility, which is under construction now, and almost done. They were notified by the city.
I saw that.
So they decided a year ago that they were gonna go down this road of the sales tax with the legislature, and they really got going with it. They were successful in November of 2025 with a 1% sales tax. It worked out very well for them. Sandy and I went down and talked to them, and I mean, I've talked to a lot of fire districts, but they're kind of closer to my heart because I spent 10 years of my life there. I know all those folks really well. There are examples of the situation that we're working on right now. Do you want to comment on any of that, Sandy?
Well, I think they're very similarly situated to us in terms of size and similar kind of situation where they were receiving the funding as a percentage of the funding that the town was receiving in their situation, obviously. They received pretty short notice that one day, they're just not going to get that money anymore and they gotta figure it out. They didn't have a whole lot of time to do it. But they used a consultant, they followed the process that Chief has outlined. And they were extraordinarily actually successful. But they were very unified as well, and so that's one of the things that we'd have to make sure that we are as well, is that we really need to make sure that we have. Everybody's on board with pursuing this objective and attempting to gain financial independence in this way. And they pointed that out as being something that was very, very important for them,
Thank you.
to their success.
And I do keep in contact with them as well as all the people that I talk to are personal colleagues of mine, and kind of a small business that we're in.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be interesting. I think it was important to take a look at about our history here of how we got to where we are today. And Scott helped me out a lot on this a couple weeks ago, putting together this history timeline, as well as in the 2014 draft strategic plan. There was actually a couple pages on all this history. So really it was helpful. Why was the district formed in 2009? There was a need for increased and consistent funding. At the time, prior to the district, the fire department was a 501(c)(4), under the town leadership. And the town contributed some money and there was some fundraising. But still not a lot of money. This department, volunteer fire department at the time operated on less than $100,000 a year for a long time.
Big sales.
That kind of
Big
stuff.
sales.
We did.
That's
Yeah,
great.
literally.
That's
Um,
amazing.
garage sale.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. No formal defined boundaries outside of town because the department did respond outside of town. you know. Even though there wasn't any kind of a district or any kind of a political subdivision outside of the town. Certainly, there were increasing calls of service, especially outside of the town. And there was really no way to ask for dedicated tax funding that included the city, the town and the outside areas without forming a district. There really just was no, option for that. So here's a little bit about the history. There was an attempt in 2004 to form a new district with 5 mills that failed. In 2006, there was an attempt to form a rural fire district outside of the city or outside of the town with its own mill levy with a contract with the town to provide service. This is not an uncommon situation. And I think it's not as common as it used to be, but it was really common. Loveland was like this for years and years. Loveland Rural contract with the city of Loveland, now their authority. Poudre Valley Fire District in Fort Collins contracted with the city of Fort Collins for many years. So it's pretty common to be done. That also failed. And the mill levies would have been, in this case, only assessed in the district outside of the city. There was an attempt at a subscription service. Scott knows a lot about that. A lot of heartache and headache trying to do that, probably John as well. And again, this is, I'm not aware of any place this has ever worked.
It certainly didn't work here.
Yeah. And it's problematic, but it was a good idea at the time. 2009, there was a second attempt to form the district with 1.9 mills, and that one did pass. And I don't know, do you remember, Scott, what the pass rate on that was?
It was fairly high.
Fairly
I
high.
don't remember what it was, but I remember it was fairly high, and it was because we had this unusual tax funding mechanism. in
Yeah,
place,
there
because
is.
they-
There was an Estes Valley Fire Service Task Force
Yep.
that was
Task
formed.
force.
Put this together, and Scott was a major player in that, I think. There was also the new funding strategy, which was basically 50% sales tax and 50% property tax, again with the IGA, with the town, and it was after a big fire.
We did. have a big fire.
It does happen from time to time.
And we had nothing to do with starting it. So I put that out there.
So that one didn't pass.
That's too much.
Then in 2023, there was an attempt to add 2.9 mills, which would have added a small number of paid firefighters. Would have done more work with wildfire risk reduction, some fire prevention. There was a new station as part of that proposal, but that one did fail. And that was in the spring of 2023. It was during the district election with mail ballots, which are a real pain in the butt when you have to do a special election or a district election with mail ballot.
We have much analysis that's been done, postmortem analysis on why that failed,
I
and
don't
by
have-
what percentages or anything like that.
I don't have any of that information.
We know if anything was done, any survey work, anything to understand.
I don't know. Does anybody remember anything?
My memory, and don't quote me on for sure, but I think it failed by 81 votes.
That is correct.
And there was a transition of fire chief during the whole, just prior, started right before the election. And then we were searching for.
Started as in we let a fire chief go right before the election, or started?
Just turmoil. I mean,
I think he was allowed to resign.
Okay, but right before the election.
Like-
Well, that may- okay.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
days.
And I also remember.
Right
a lot
before
of-
the actual election. Well, that wasn't, okay. then,
I think Jeff had.
I remember a lot of talk at the time that people were, a new fire station, what the hell for? So not like, it just wasn't, all that I remember being out there was that, yeah, we needed a fire station. Not why, or, it just wasn't justified. That's what I remember.
So, but is. It sounds like we have very different circumstances, so we don't
We
have
have
to belabor
different
this point,
So
okay.
we don't have to belabor it. Miranda's told me stories about late ballots coming in and, and maybe those ballots could have been counted, maybe, who knows?
We can talk about that
All
later.
right, so like it sounds like we'll do this a little bit more, in a much more organized way, and hopefully not fire any significant people 5 days.
I would guess if we were to do a case study on it, it would probably be. the
A
way
case
not to
study
do it.
on how not to do it, yes.
Anyway, so this gives you a little bit of a history, which kind of speaks a little bit to the circumstances that we deal with here in the Estes family.
Well, I would say one of the things, because I was involved in all of those, is the question that came up from the community members was, how is this tax gonna help me personally?
Mhm.
You know, what's it gonna do to my house and my family? And if you don't have an answer for that, they're not gonna vote for it. Because because they're individual, then how is this gonna help me? So that's something that we really had to focus.
And it was also-
House catches on fire.
Well, That's true. And if you want a truck that functions, responding to that fire,
You know what?
it might be, yeah.
People want a fire truck at their door 2 minutes after the alarm goes off. Newest and best equipment, but they don't wanna pay for it. You know, so it's how do you get them to turn that corner, if you want to cover it before it's gonna happen.
And aren't the consultants people who can really help us to answer those questions in ways that are meaningful to people? Okay.
It really
Oh.
comes down to the campaigning piece of it and the education, and to your point of just making whatever we're asking for relatable to the community, so they really understand our whys and our needs. And again, that can be done through consultants, you know.
And also, I wanna, before we go on to the next couple of slides, I think we've talked about, Sandy and I, we need to end this session about 20 minutes after 4, so that we have time to put the room back in the normal area.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
All right, so now let's we
Talk
talked
fast.
about the why, now we'll talk about the needs. And again, we divided it into 2 sections, operations and services and cabinet. The two, and again, all of these things that I'm gonna point out here pretty soon have been identified before. There's really nothing new here. Certainly replacing the town sales tax support. And we're not talking about 1A here. 1A is completely separate. That is a revenue stream that funds very specific services for specific risks. So we're not talking about 1A funds here at all. And you're gonna see later on in our regular meeting a plan to separate those further financially. And that right now is about 1.3 million, approximately a 1/4 cent sales tax if you were to equate it. Although it may actually be a little bit more than that because of the exclusions for fire districts versus the town. And we haven't been able to do that analysis yet. Certainly to support and grow our volunteer system. Our volunteer firefighter system is the bedrock of all the services that we provide, other than some of John's fire prevention and risk reduction services. Our system is nothing without our volunteers. And if we're gonna provide, a state-of-the-art, world-class volunteer organization, we need to support that organization, both from training, recruitment, retention, all those kinds of things. And the larger force that we have right now, and maybe even growing it even larger, takes support to do that. Improve our community risk reduction and general fire prevention, and we've done a little bit of that already. And that is something that doesn't go away. Our facilities and logistics supports, right now, we're talking about this facility right here that's 30 years old. More than 30 years old, all right, right about this year, it's just 30 years old. We certainly have needs for the upkeep of this building, more than any of us really know. I mean, John is probably the most knowledgeable person on what it takes to maintain even the facilities that we have now, and it gets more every year. Emergency preparedness with the town, Ian and I had a little bit of discussion about this. Is that emergency management and emergency preparedness is generally a function of general government, cities and towns, counties and state. Usually special districts, unless they get real big, really aren't involved with it that much. However, because of our isolation from the rest of the county, that's a bigger deal. Like Ian is the emergency manager for the town of Estes Park. The emergency manager for Larimer County is based out of Fort Collins or Love. So we have those issues. So I think there will be opportunities, and we should look at those opportunities in the future, would partner with the town and probably the county to do more with that at a fire district level. Certainly, we're not big enough to have our own emergency manager, but certainly we could partner with the town to do that. And of course, wildfire response. That's the story of all our lives now. It will be the story of our lives going into the future as far as we as we can see, John's doing, great work with wildfire risk reduction is going to be more in the future. We have special funding revenue streams that support that. However, all of our plans, our strategic plans that we've had in the past, even though they're not adopted, our community wildfire protection plan, some of these other, plans that are floating around out there continually recommend more wildfire response, training, equipment, people, those kinds of things. And we're gonna have to be involved with more of those kind of things. So that's our operations in these, and we haven't put dollars to all those things yet. There was a recommendation in the 2023 strategic plan to separate the Chris Thomas's position into two positions, into training and volunteer recruitment and retention support, and we probably need that to maintain our volunteer system. We probably need to be able to do that, to maintain our volunteer system. Because right now, Chris is kind of pushing those things together.
What are the demographics in our volunteer system, right? Is it, are we aging? Are we getting a lot of younger people? What is that like?
I think over the last few years, it varied. We've gotten some younger folks and we've gotten some older folks. I think adding the interior, exterior portion of our fire department helps. We'll get some older people that wanna, right, older people that wanna participate, but they don't wanna be an interior firefighter, but they can show up and help with traffic control. They can show up and help with exterior functions of what we do.
Yeah.
And I also think adding our auxiliary groups, that's definitely helped. Getting more people, elderly people, and really older people, and you need to come in and help with that side of things.
I'm thinking about how people might age out, and do we have younger people coming in so that we maintain or grow our numbers?
Yeah, I think it varies every year, though. I
Right.
think it's, some years we have really good recruitment of the younger people, and the older people are retiring or moving on, and some years it's pretty status quo.
Just in general, my experience has been volunteer fire departments tend to run between 20 and 25% turnover on an average. Some years it's higher, some years lower. So we're always recruiting, always bringing people on, always training, always providing advanced training for those folks that are there. It takes advanced training to drive the trucks, takes advanced training, and officer, takes advanced training to be swiftwater rescue, the rescue that we just had out here on Highway 36, just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that takes special training and special equipment. So it takes a lot to maintain a state-of-the-art volunteer system. The other side is capital, and this is a big deal for us. Fire apparatus and light vehicles. The value of our apparatus and our light vehicles right now is about $20 million. Which means over the next 20 years, we need to replace all those vehicles, the light vehicles twice. And some of them more often. And fire apparatus, the big stuff, is increasing the cost of 8 to 10% a year. Plus it takes 3 years to get it. So that's a big deal. We have no dedicated funding stream for apparatus replacement right now. Fortunately, we're in good shape because our fleet is pretty solid right now, and this is really a good thing. However, if we don't start doing something with it and start creating a revenue stream to make that move into the future, 4 or 5 years from now, we're gonna be in real trouble. And some of you know that I have served agencies whose fleets were failing. And you don't wanna be in that, you just don't wanna be in that situation. Major equipment, self-contained breathing apparatus, radios, personal protective equipment, all that stuff, rescue equipment, all that stuff, tens and even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and all that has to be replaced periodically. One of the interesting things that we have as far as a volunteer organization is we have, 40, 45 volunteers, and we issue them all a radio, right? Those radios are $7,000. Now, if you're a fully paid organization and you have 10 riding positions, you only have 10 radios. So there are costs that go into a volunteer organization, certainly less expensive than a paid organization, but there are still costs to do that. You've talked about the office consolidation already. And certainly we have needs there. We've also talked about training center improvements and expansion. One of the key functions, one of the key great things in our organization is our training. And our training is as good as it is because we've got a great training center. And we need to continue to expand that, build it, continue to make it a state-of-the-art training center. And it's so integral to everything that we do. Fire Station 1, Sandy mentioned it already. This station is bursting at the seams. I don't know how our people get their gear on and get on the trucks without losing half their gear between trucks. All of our personal protective equipment is in the contaminated environment of our bays. If we do have the exhaust systems, this is a help. But it's a big deal. I mean, you just walk out there in that bay and you can't even hardly walk through the bay. So it is. We're just outgrowing this station. So we need to deal with that. And then there's the last piece, and going back to that one point, is that expansion, is that renovation, is a replacement? Who knows? We don't know what that is. But it's millions of dollars. Where probably the cheapest renovation would probably be several $1 million. You know?
And we're limited on what you can do because of the footprint,
Exactly.
the OR agreement.
Yeah, and for a new station that meets our needs, this size, probably 15, so I mean, it's a lot of money. To be dealing with these things. And then the last point there is, we do have a second fire station. What are the needs of that station to make that, a fully contributing station within our system? And again, that hasn't been talked about a lot, but it's certainly something that we need to deal with. Because that station is critical to our insurance service office rating.
There's also, the agreement with the Park Service for that station. We had already had expansion available to go to another bay there if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And they did a environmental assessment, which was included for the second bay. So if we ever wanted to do one, it'd be at our expense, but we could do it.
And is that the best location for it too? So those are capital issues out there, many millions of dollars. That we really don't have any funding available to us now to do it. Probably the apparatus and the light vehicles is probably the ones driving us right now, because if we don't get on that, it's hard to provide good services if your truck's don't work. And that's a real problem.
I think that right there is a good selling point to the voters, to why we need
Oh, yeah,
this.
100%.
The good thing about apparatus replacement is if we create a fund and we put money in it all the year, it builds up and then you spend it, it builds up and it's spending. It's not like $10 million for a station that you gotta spend all at once. So the apparatus replacement one is a common way of doing it. Okay, this is just gonna be a quick outline of moving into the how to do it. Once we decide, get a really good handle on why and what our needs are, then we need to talk about how do we do it? What kind of tax? What kind of revenue does it generate? I think all of our discussion has been around sales tax. But there certainly is property tax. Our mill levy is very, very low. It's 2.069, which is the lowest mill levy that I know of for any fire district anywhere in the state. I think the county average is like 9 or 10. Right up the road here, they're what, 6 or 7?
You're talking about Allen's
Allen's Park.
Yeah, they're going for a mill levy increase, so they're gonna be looking at 9 or something, I think, so they're.
Lions is 22.
Lions is 22, yep. So our mill levy is very low. However, with such a high level of paying of sales tax for visitors, it does make, I think, sales tax. So how much, when do we, if we decide we're gonna do we do it November 2027, May of 2027, or as Hippie talked about, do we fast track it into the general election of November of 2026? And of course, there's certainly a question, are there other funding sources? I've been in this business for a long time, and funny quickly I can say,
Do subscription.
yes, don't do Steve.
And they're gonna,
sometimes there's grants out there that you can get off something. But as far as the sustainable, the way I know that there's one other district in the county that's thinking about doing charges for, vehicle wrecks. Because you can do that, you know, your insurance company, if the fire department comes and cuts you out of your car or cleans up the road or whatever it is, they'll pay for that. We all pay for that as part of our insurance.
Not without a fight.
Not without a fight. But there are places that are trying to do that. Does it generate significant revenue? Probably. Probably not worth the hassle.
No, there's a lot of rights up here.
Yeah, but so that, these are the kind of decisions that need to be made. Also, we've talked about public information and external communication strategy. This comes up over and over and over and over again. We talked about this a little bit at our last meeting. These are all the pieces that need to be in place. And we're not doing a very good job on a lot of this stuff. You know, we had a lot of turnover, a lot of issues with staff over the last year or two. Certainly, funding, you know, is a problem. So it's hard to do this kind of work and do a good job at it. When you're short a lot of people to do it, especially when it's people that were doing this. So this is a big deal. We need, if we're gonna position ourselves, to have a successful, experience coming up with some kind, asking citizens for funding, then we're gonna need to do a better job of this. And this is something a consultant can help us with.
I think one thing that would help us probably, you're talking about maintaining the building and our equipment. Our equipment gets worked on here in town, right?
Correct, we have an agreement with the town.
So if we could promote that we get everything maintained with local businesses, I preach this to the town all the time. Because I always hear people say, well, yeah, that's the shit out of me, and when they hire somebody to come in from somewhere else, my money leaves down. And people are kind of over that.
Yeah.
So,
And we actually have a great relationship with the town. We pay for a half person or a full person.
350 hours, so. Here,
so I think that if we could add that to, you know, we use local, we stay here in town to maintain our building, to maintain all of our stuff. We use local businesses for, you know, the more you can push that local, the more locals gonna love you.
Yeah, which is another point, in another month or two, we are gonna bring back to you, a complete rewrite of our purchasing policies. And we're gonna bring that back to you probably in another month or two. Maybe that's a point you wanna put in that. In that
Yeah, I think that's
purchasing
a good
policy.
idea, actually. I'll talk to Ashley about that.
So there's this whole public information piece. The consultant, we've had some talk about that already. They are very helpful in the design and implementation of the public information engagement. They're the ones that do the surveys, either the big survey or even one before it. And they can help out with election design and campaign design. In some cases, they can provide services on a separate deal to if there's a campaign organization issue committee or something like that. The relationship wouldn't be with us, but they would be there and help produce the promotional materials and mailings and signs and all that stuff.
What's the average cost of a consultant like that?
Oh, yeah, the next slide.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
$50,000.
Yeah, and then obviously there's a bunch of legal work that needs to be done. There's all kinds of work that has to be done on a ballot, so the ballot meets the why and the needs. There's all of the issues that go along, and it has to be a mail election. And if it's coordinated with the county and the November election, all those voter lists have to be coordinated and taken care of as a special district. Something that you guys don't have to worry about is we have to make sure that non-resident property owners get the vote. And that's something that's different for a special district than a town or a city. And that's an extra cost to do that. You gotta make sure all the legal stuff is right. Cause the worst thing that can happen, and it has happened to other districts, is you make a mistake. It's somewhere in the legal part of the process, compiling the list, mailing, anything that has to do with that. And if you make a mistake, it can be a real problem. There's all kinds of statutory requirements. There are timelines that have to be met at each level. And make, all that has to be done, that all has legal stuff, and it can be costly. Which then gets us to estimated cost, which was your question, Ryan. We've heard from two consultants that it's about $5,000 a month for a consultant. So if we use a consultant for 10 months, it would be about 50,000. It can cost anywhere between $10,000 and $30,000 for surveys. I just talked to Carbondale today, and their big survey was $15,000. Then we talked to some others that said 20,000. So surveys can be expensive. Legal can be expensive as well. All the election preparation sometimes, and I would advocate for this as well, sometimes you have to have a separate consultant that just does the ballot, that just does the whole voter list piece. So you don't make a mistake with that. I don't know, did we do that ourselves last time? Do you guys
Last
remember?
time we used our lawyer. They were our designated election official and all of that, handling ballots.
And sometimes they may be our DEO, we're paying them to be our, but they may subcontract out to do the mailing and all the mail ballots. And we did it last time as part of a May election, correct? So we had to foot the entire cost. If you do a mail election, it's gotta be a mail ballot anyway, because it's a Tabor issue. If you coordinate with the county, there's less cost. Usually you pay it per ballot cost. And usually it's about, the last time I did one, it was $1. It was Weld County, and it was $1 per ballot. We have 8,000 registered voters plus property owners that are not local. So we probably got 8 or 10, so at $1, $1.50 or whatever it is, it would be that much. We could expect, based on talking to the other districts that have done this, that it would probably be over, if we did it over 2 years, 150,000. It'd be at least 100,000, and it might push 150 to do this. Now, certainly you can do it cheaper. We've talked about some of our colleagues that they did it all themselves in a short period of time, and they were still successful. But it ate up their staff time like absolutely crazy. I mean, when we talked to Bertha, he said they put everything else on the back burner and did nothing but election for 3 months. And they were successful. They didn't use a consultant, although when we met with the chief last week, he said, if I give you one recommendation, get a good consultant. Because of that much work. So that's it for what I have prepared.
So what are your thoughts, board members and anyone else, who's here on timing? But we've had a fairly detailed discussion about what we need. We don't know yet what we would ask for. We haven't put numbers to that, but it seems to me that if we were gonna do something in the 2026 election, we'd need to start working, 2 weeks ago.
Or months ago.
Yeah, and also, we don't have it budgeted this year for the $150,000 for 2026, so it's something that we should put in our budget for 2027. And I don't think we should try to rush this. Cause that's what happened in the first go round, is we kind of rushed it and we were beaten badly. And I think that it's best,
Around being not 23, but before that.
yeah,
Okay.
2009.
2009.
So I think that we need to make sure we get all our ducks in a row. We have the funding budgeted for the election, and hiring a consultant. That's gonna take a little time to find the right consultant and look for it. I would say 2027 is when we should probably go the fall of 2027.
If we could put it together this year, though, we could answer a lot of questions and get the feedback from the community. And as we roll into 2027, we would have a little better understanding of what our opposition is or what the challenges are. And it's a really dry year this year. People care about firefighters when it's dry and when there was a recent fire.
That's one of the things I was gonna say, is that right now it's a little like having had the mall fire at the one time. We have people that are very, very concerned about, fire response and fire preparedness and all those things right now.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't want to rush it, but I think if we can do it responsibly and get it out in 2026, I wouldn't see any reason why not to.
What are the survey costs?
Are the survey costs considered part of the consultant, cost? Did you?
Separate, the 5,000 for the consultant is just a consulting fee.
Okay,
Surveys are separate now, and we could just do a consultant, and then we could do a separate contract for a survey with a different firm. Usually, your consultant recommends a survey consultant. that they
What is the survey? I mean, what all do they do?
What they'll do is as the way it's been explained to me, is they look at your voter lists. They start with the voter list, of which we've got about 8,000 voters in our district based on the last elections. And then they look at the demographics of that. And then they put together either a telephone, most of them are not, some, like one of them talked to us about, they do it all by text now. Where they send a text message and then you go to a site and it goes, and they work with you on coming up with the questions that really fit your need. Now, I mentioned let's go back to,
Sorry,
that's all right. Can you just run it back?
you can now. There you go.
You know, there was this survey here that they call the uninformed survey, which is kind of more open-ended. What do you know about the fire district? How do you know what they operate, what services they provide? How satisfied are you with their services? You know, it's more open-ended, whereas this one here is much more, well, what would you be willing to pay for it? You know, those kind of things, or pay more for it. You know, if we did push this into 2026, we could probably talk to a consultant about doing quicker survey.
Well, I guess if we're pushing it closer, I mean, I'm kind of with Scott, I don't overdo it and put it in on 26, but I mean, if we put it in 26, do we need the survey? I mean,
Well,
the reason I ask is because if somebody texts me, I'm gonna ignore it. I do not pay for your work. And that's the majority of people I know that are registered voters. My age group. That's in my mind, that's a waste of the.
the consultant we talked about with that said they get about 15% return rate on the new method.
1.5,
15%,
15.
as compared to standard old mail, which is about 5, and telephone now, which is about 3.
And do they track the demographics of that 15%?
And there's a whole science to survey. We heard two things from consultants. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Rebecca, or can add to it. Is one, if you go early, like we could, it'll be just like you said. It could be, we'll find out information, even if it doesn't go, we'll find out information that we can use. The flip side to that is people will be pissed off and they won't, and chances of getting it again are.
Would be hard for us to go back in 2027.
Right.
If we go in 26 and fail and then try to go back in 27.
Because I already said.
Yeah, already, exactly.
Have the consultant said anything about whether and how we could responsibly and effectively pursue this in November of 26? Have you talked to them specifically
No.
about that?
They gave us that because the direction that I've had from you already,
Oh, yes, of course.
all of 2027.
We're all looking at 26.
But that could be direction you might want to give us in the regular meeting is,
Well, it might be information that would be useful to us in analyzing this, right? I mean, if the consultants are all, hey, that would be stupid, then, well, then that would be stupid.
I mean, one of the actions you could suggest to or recommend to us is we could put together an RFP for Satin Realty. For a 6-month contract or something like that. And figure that out, or we could just pay a consultant. I don't know, I haven't talked to him, but I mean, maybe we could do a consultant just on an hourly basis, just for advice on that kind of stuff. We did talk to 3 consultants. Some are, I don't want to say, they're political folks. And they have a different look on life, as far as, what they push, I don't wanna. I'm having trouble coming up with a word that isn't slimy, but.
I think then for all practical purposes, we really are looking at 27, but the fact of the matter is, this is our even year. It's a big election year, voting turnout is gonna be high. And I think it also might be a little irresponsible if we don't consider it and at least understand the possibilities associated with being able to do it in this election year. So we don't ask the question, we don't get the answer, and I kind of would like to know the answer. To whether we could effectively or potentially do it this year without shooting ourselves in the foot.
We do have $30,000 in our budget for an election this year. That we don't have plans for because we don't have an election this year, but there is 30,000 in our budget line for elections this year.
Well, one of the things we did talk about as a board is waiting till 2027 because of the new fire chief being hired.
Right.
And putting our
Yeah.
focus on that and not on an election for this year. So I mean, that was already a board discussion.
It
And we
was,
decided that wait till 2027. Now, I'm not saying we couldn't change, but it's just that was already our discussion.
Brian pointed out, watching the clock over my shoulder, that we need to reconfigure the room, or are you comfortable just staying like this for, wasn't it? I'm not seeing public standing at the door trying to.
I think we can just stay like this. I think it's okay. Yeah, I don't think there's any need to make everybody move the tables around.
I agree with you, Scott, and we did talk about leaving it at 27, I don't see somebody voting us down dry year.
Yeah.
And I always vote for the fire department because I like when they show up at my house if something happens. So I mean, it'd be beneficial. Not only to us, but to the town to get it done earlier.
Maybe at a minimum, it'd be a good idea to have the experts tell us whether we could do it.
Right, I would like to hear, like I said, whether they think we could get it done or not.
Well, what they get back,
So it was- All right, so we'll take that into the board meeting. We obviously aren't gonna be making a decision in the work session. Does anybody have any further questions for either Travis, Chief Stewart, Chief Jones, anybody else? Any further discussion on this topic for the work session? All right, then, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the work session, please. Ryan, second, please.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carried, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for.